Your sister is the real writer. My mother's voice echoed through the bookstore as she threw my manuscripts into the decorative fireplace. The flames eagerly consumed 3 years of my work while shocked guests watched in horror. My name is Emma Sullivan, and this was supposed to be the proudest moment of my life, my first book launch. I stood calmly, phone recording in my pocket, as my mother continued her tirade. Sophie has real talent. You just got lucky with your little stories. She deserves this contract, not you. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sophie, my younger sister, had never finished anything she'd started, including her half-completed English degree. Let me back up a bit. I'm 28, and I've been writing since I could hold a pencil. While other kids played outside, I filled notebooks with stories. My parents never paid much attention to my hobby until last month when my debut novel landed a 6-figure publishing deal. The advance was more money than I'd ever seen, and the publisher was already talking about a 3-book series. That's when everything changed. Suddenly, my parents were interested in my writing, but not in the way I'd hoped. Sophie has been struggling, my mother had said during our weekly family dinner. She's thinking about getting back into writing. Maybe you could share your contract with her. Let her write one of the books in your series. I'd nearly choked on my coffee. That's not how publishing contracts work, Mom. These are my books, my stories. Don't be selfish, my father chimed in. Your sister needs this opportunity. You've always been the practical one. You have your teaching job to fall back on. Now, watching my mother destroy my work, I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up writing while teaching full-time. The countless rejection letters. The revisions. The tears. Sophie had been too busy finding herself to finish anything, but somehow I was the selfish one. Mrs. Sullivan. Marcus, my publisher, pushed through the crowd. What are you doing? Those are copyrighted materials. My mother whirled around, her designer blouse smeared with ash. These stories were inspired by our family. Sophie told me how Emma stole her ideas when they were kids. This contract belongs to my talented daughter. I almost laughed. The only thing Sophie had contributed to my stories was being a perfect example of what not to do with your life. That's enough. A sharp voice cut through the chaos. Catherine Williams, my literary agent, stepped forward. Security, please escort Mrs. Sullivan out. And someone call the police. Police? My mother's face paled. This is a family matter. Emma, tell them to stop. I finally spoke, my voice steady. No, Mom, this stopped being a family matter when you decided to publicly destroy my work. As security led my protesting mother away, my father appeared. Princess, your mother is just upset. Sophie's been having a hard time. Surely you can understand. Mr. Sullivan, Catherine interrupted, I suggest you leave too. Your daughter's publisher will be in touch about the damages. The room buzzed with whispers and phone cameras. My launch had turned into a viral spectacle, but strangely, I felt relieved. Years of being the practical one, the responsible sister, the one who had to sacrifice for Sophie's dreams, it all ended tonight. Marcus approached me, his face concerned. Emma, I am so sorry. Are you okay? I pulled out my phone, stopping the recording. I'm fine, and I have everything documented. Catherine smiled knowingly. Smart girl. But what about your manuscripts? Now it was my turn to smile. Those weren't my real manuscripts. They were old drafts I kept for the launch display. Everything important is safely backed up, including the next 2 books in the series. The shock on everyone's faces was priceless. They'd expected tears, drama, maybe even a breakdown. Instead, they got calculated preparation. Years of dealing with my family had taught me to always have a backup plan. My phone buzzed. Sophie calling. I declined it and turned to Marcus. I believe we have a book launch to salvage. He grinned, already seeing the marketing potential. This is going to make one hell of a story. As the guests began to settle back down, I caught my reflection in the bookstore window. I looked different somehow, stronger. My mother had tried to destroy my dream, but she only succeeded in setting fire to her own illusions about controlling my life. My phone kept buzzing with messages from family members, flying monkeys, as they say, all rushing to tell me how I needed to make peace, to understand, to forgive. But I was done being the understanding one. Sometimes the best revenge isn't fighting back. It's letting people show exactly who they are to the world. Catherine squeezed my arm. Ready to address your readers? They're going to have questions. I nodded, straightening my jacket. I'm ready. After all, every good story needs a dramatic turning point. What happened next would change everything, but for now, I had a book launch to finish. And somewhere in a city, my mother was about to learn that actions have consequences. Very public, very expensive consequences. The morning after my disastrous book launch, I woke up to a media frenzy. My phone was flooded with notifications, news outlets, social media mentions, and most surprisingly, messages from other authors sharing similar stories of family sabotage. The video of my mother destroying my manuscripts had gone viral. "Emma, have you seen this?" Catherine called early, her voice excited. "Your book just shot to #1 on Amazon. The pre-orders are through the roof." I was scrolling through the headlines. Author's mother burns manuscripts in shocking book launch drama. Family sabotage backfires. Sullivan's debut novel soars. And my personal favorite, sister rivalry turns fiery at literary event. "There's more," Catherine continued. "3 major networks want interviews. They're calling it the rite of passage, the story of an author rising from the ashes of family betrayal." I hadn't planned on this level of attention, but my mother's actions had turned my quiet book launch into a cultural moment. People weren't just interested in my novel anymore. They were invested in my story. The doorbell rang. Another flower delivery. This time from my old writing group with a note reading, "Your mother lit a fire, but not the one she intended." They weren't wrong. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. "Mom's devastated. How could you let them arrest her? This is all your fault." I hadn't actually pressed charges, but my publisher had different ideas. The police had released her with a warning, but Marcus was pursuing legal action for destruction of intellectual property and disruption of a commercial event. Another text followed. "She was only trying to help me. You know I've always wanted to be a writer." I thought about Sophie's writing career, the unfinished stories, the abandoned blog, the creative writing classes she dropped. Meanwhile, I'd written my novel during lunch breaks at school, late nights, and weekends. Every word earned through sacrifice and determination. The landline rang, my parents' last resort since I blocked their numbers on my cell. I let it go to voicemail. "Emma, honey," my father's voice cracked. "Your mother's not eating. She's devastated about what happened. The neighbors are talking. Please, can't we handle this as a family?" As a family, that phrase had always been their weapon of choice, wielded whenever they needed me to cave, to be reasonable, to put Sophie's needs first. My laptop pinged with an email from Marcus. "Emma, the publicity team wants to lean into this. We're thinking of adding an author's note to the book about your writing journey and the launch incident. The public is fascinated by your calm reaction to the chaos. They're calling you the Phoenix author. Also, we've received an interesting offer from a documentary filmmaker." Marcus. I was cracking my response when Catherine called again. "Turn on Channel 5 now." My mother was on the local news, standing outside their house in her perfect pearl necklace, tears streaming down her face. "I only wanted what was best for both my daughters," she sobbed. "Emma has always been so blessed, and Sophie needs this opportunity. As a mother, I had to try." I muted the TV, feeling a strange mix of amusement and sadness. Even now, she was trying to control the narrative, to paint herself as the devoted mother fighting for her struggling child. My phone lit up with a message from my old English teacher. "Saw the news. Remember when your mother didn't come to your first writing award ceremony because of Sophie's dance recital? Some things never change. Stay strong." She was right. Nothing had changed except me. I opened my laptop and began to write, not for my next book, but for myself. "Dear Mom and Dad." For years, I did my light to make Sophie shine. Every achievement came with guilt, every success with the obligation to share. But here's what you never understood. My stories were never about the family. They were about escaping it. You didn't create a writer when you burned my manuscripts. You freed one. Emma. I didn't send it. I didn't need to. The next morning, Publishers Weekly announced my book had broken pre-sale records. Sometimes the article read, "An author's real story is more compelling than their fiction." My phone buzzed again. Sophie calling for the 20th time. This time I answered. "How dare you do this to our family?" she started. "Mom's a mess, Dad's furious, and my friends keep sending me that horrible video." "Sophie," I interrupted calmly, "I have to go. I have a meeting with the documentary team." "Documentary? About what?" about how our mother's attempt to burn my future only made it brighter. I hung up, feeling lighter than I had in years. The manuscript fire had burned away more than paper. It had incinerated the last traces of my need to please them. Marcus was right. This would make one hell of a story. But it wasn't over yet. Not even close. 3 months after the infamous book launch, my life had transformed in ways I never imagined. My novel Phoenix Rising, ironically about a woman breaking free from toxic family expectations, had spent 8 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. The documentary about the manuscript burning incident, titled Rite of Passage, was generating Oscar buzz in the documentary category. But the biggest change wasn't the success. It was the silence. No more weekly family dinners, no more guilt trips, no more sacrificing my dreams for Sophie's whims. The peace was liberating. That peace was interrupted one morning by an unexpected email from my father. "Emma, your mother hasn't been well. The video keeps circulating, and she can't leave the house without someone mentioning it. Sophie lost her job because her boss saw the news. This has gone too far. We're having a family meeting tonight at 7. Please come home and help us fix this." Dad. I almost deleted it, but something caught my eye. This wasn't about me giving in. This was about them facing consequences. At 7:05, I walked into my childhood home. The familiar scent of Mom's anxiety baking filled the air. She always made chocolate chip cookies during family crisis. They sat around the dining room table, Mom, looking smaller than I remembered, Dad, attempting his usual authoritative pose, and Sophie, shooting daggers with her eyes. "You've ruined everything," Sophie started, but Dad held up his hand. "Let me handle this," he said, turning to me. "Princess, this has to stop. The documentary, the interviews, the book success. It's destroying our family. People are calling your mother the book burner. Sophie's life is in shambles." I sat quietly, sipping the water Mom had nervously placed before me. "Interesting," I finally said, "that you're more concerned about your reputations than what you did." "I was protecting Sophie," Mom burst out. "You've always had everything so easy." "Easy?" I interrupted, my voice calm but firm. "Let's talk about easy. Let's talk about how I worked full-time while writing my novel. How I spent every vacation day at writing workshops while Sophie was finding herself in Europe on your dime. How I built my career while you were busy planning Sophie's next fresh start." "But she needed," Mom began. "No," I cut her off. "She wanted. There's a difference." I pulled out my phone and played a video. Sophie at a bar, clearly drunk, bragging to her friends weeks before the launch. "My sister thinks she's so special with her book deal. But Mom's gonna fix that. We're gonna make her share it with me. She always gives in." The color drained from Sophie's face. "Where did you get that?" "One of your friends sent it to me after the launch. Apparently, not everyone thinks family sabotage is cute." Dad leaned forward. "What do you want, Emma? Money? We can pay you to stop the documentary." I laughed, actually laughed. "I made more from my advance than you did last year, Dad. This isn't about money. It's about accountability." I stood up, smoothing my skirt. "The documentary premieres next month. You're all welcome to attend. Maybe seeing yourselves through the world's eyes will be educational." "You can't do this to us," Sophie whimpered. "We're family." "Family doesn't burn family's dreams," I replied. "But you did teach me something valuable. Every good story needs fire." As I turned to leave, Mom called out, "I read your book." I paused. "The main character," she continued, her voice small. "The one who rises from the ashes. That's you, isn't it?" "No, Mom, that was fiction. This me walking away, succeeding despite you. This is real." The documentary premiered to critical acclaim. My family didn't attend, but they couldn't escape it. It wasn't just about the manuscript burning. It was about patterns of family dysfunction, about creative survival, about rising above toxic support systems. My second book, a memoir titled Burning Pages, was released 6 months later. In it, I thanked my mother, not for her support, but for showing me exactly what I didn't want to become. Sophie eventually got a new job and, last I heard, started actually writing instead of just talking about it. Mom and Dad sold their house and moved to Florida, away from the neighbors who couldn't forget their viral moment. As for me, I bought a beautiful house with a library and a view. No fireplace, though. Some memories don't need physical reminders. Yesterday, I received a package. Inside was a handmade book of family photos and a note from Mom. I didn't understand your fire because I spent so long extinguishing my own. I'm sorry it took losing you to see that. I placed the book on my shelf, not as a peace offering accepted, but as a reminder of how far I come. Sometimes the happy ending isn't about forgiveness. It's about finding the strength to write your own story, even if others try to burn the pages. My phone buzzed, another interview request. They wanted to know about my next novel. It's about a phoenix, I told them. But this time, she's not just rising from the ashes. She's lighting the way for others to fly. Some fires destroy. Others illuminate. I finally learned the difference.